Hey, Mary. Recording, and David is going to begin his.
Does David need you want me to stop sharing so you can share there?
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be great. We can get started.
All right, I'll put it in the chat, ladies, but the picnic is this Friday.
All right.
Okay.
Take it away, David.
And it's okay if I stand right here behind the computer where you were?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Oh man, you guys want to just be looking at me from the nose down?
Yeah, that's a little shorter than you.
Oh, this is great. Hey, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? See me okay?
Good
Yes.
morning, yes.
Good morning.
All right, I am gonna do some fun Zoom stuff. I'm gonna change my name so that you all don't think I'm Marianne. But Marianne, you'll have to change this later.
Okay.
There we go. Just changed this to David. We had our first Zoom success here. All right, so it's great to be with you all this morning. So as the Zoom screen says, my name is David. I am an academic and career advisor here at CCC, and I have the pleasure of being based here at our 4th Street campus. The majority of the other advisors are based at Lone Tree, but I get to call 4th Street home, which is really cool. Some of you may have been to our campus here at 4th Street before, but this is where a lot of our career and technical education happens. So all of our like nursing and allied health, all of our construction, fire science, computer programs, this is where all the fun stuff happens. So I like being here. A lot of the programs here at our 4th Street campus, they lead directly to the workforce as opposed to maybe leading to like a university where students would go on and get a bachelor's. And so because so many of our programs here at 4th Street lead directly to the workforce, I've been able to help a lot of students put together resumes and cover letters and just be able to help them prepare for kind of that next step after they leave CCC here. So I have a little presentation for you guys about just how to prepare for the working world. So we're going to be talking about what are some of the responsibilities that like employers have that they're responsible for providing for you as the worker. We're going to be looking at, what you are committing to when you say yes to a job. We're going to be looking at how to actively search for jobs that are in the community, as well as then like what is a resume and what is a cover letter, all those sorts of things. So hopefully you guys are all ready to dive in. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Woohoo! All right. Oh, awesome. Okay, so I can't tell what is it that I'm sharing. So can you guys see the resume and employability skills PowerPoint that's up?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this full screen. Yeah, I shouldn't need to download it. I think this will be just fine. All right. Well, I'm gonna do things just a little different because this one that I put online is just slightly different than the one that I usually give in person. Hold on just one second, class. Oh. All right, does everybody see where it says resume and employability skills workshop?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this slide was not on the last one. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, what the heck is going on right now? I already gave you guys a little bit of an intro, kind of who I am. Yeah, I've been at CCC for about 2.5 years. what's this workshop going to be about? So yeah, I gave you guys that little spiel already. And then why are you here? You know, I'm assuming that I was invited because a lot of you do have goals where you're already thinking beyond maybe, you know, getting your GED or high school equivalency. You know, you're thinking beyond maybe, you know, getting those English skills under your belt, whatever it might be. And you're thinking about like, okay, how am I going to maybe use these skills out in the real world to earn an income? So that's what I'm hoping to dive into here today. And I want to say too that, yeah, as I present, if there are any questions, feel free to put something in the chat. Feel free to take yourself off of mute and just go ahead and ask. This can be an interactive presentation here today. Okay, first thing I like to go over is when you do say yes to an employer and say yes to, you know, whatever job it is that you've applied to, what are some of the things that they are actually saying yes to when they bring you on? Like, what are their rights and responsibilities? And this is good to go over because, you know, I always like to be positive and I'm a pretty optimistic person, but sometimes there are employers out there that don't play by the rules per se. And so it's good for each individual to know what their rights are. That way they can kind of just be able to hold their employer accountable. Now, hopefully it never gets to that, but this is always just good to go over. Okay, so first off, it looks like my slide here. This is the employee responsibilities. So these are the ones that you are committing to. So you're committing to being reliable, you know, working responsibly, respectfully, and safely, completing your assigned work in a timely manner and meeting those established deadlines. It also talks about communication here, effective communication with your coworkers. Excuse me. So like when it does talk about completing tasks in a timely manner, you know, if you do have a lot of tasks on your plate, then those communication skills come into play, right? Where you can talk to your supervisor and be like, hey, is it possible to get an extension on some of these? Which ones should I prioritize? All those things. So a lot of these do they all interrelate with each other. Yeah, you're committing to providing quality work, professional attention to detail, maintaining integrity, and you can kind of see some of these others here. So this is what you are committing to when you say yes to a job. Now, what are they committing to as the employer? So they are committing to maintaining a safe and comfortable working environment. Even here at CCC, like when I'm working at my desk, the company is required to like provide a standing desk if I would like it. They can do like an ergonomic assessment of my workplace to make sure that, you know, over time my back isn't getting hurt, or, you know, I'm not getting carpal tunnel in my wrists, those sorts of things. So every employer is in their own context responsible for providing that safe and comfortable environment. They need to provide training for employees and make sure that they're equipped to do the job that they're assigned. If you are in a job where there's like personal protective equipment, whether it's like maybe in a construction site or in the medical field, they are required to provide that for you. So let's say if you work in a medical setting and your employer says, oh, actually, you need to bring in your own isolation gowns and your own gloves. You know, you can go back to them and say, actually, no, that is your responsibility. This is a big one, pay or some type of compensation, whatever it is that you've agreed to. That is something they're required to pay for or to do regularly. They manage schedules, maintain records, and then respond appropriately to concerns or whatever it might be that you want to kind of bring forward to chat with them. Okay, so kind of a big overview about how we search for jobs. So I have a few bullet points here, and you know, it's not like you maybe just choose one of these bullet points when you're looking for a job. You really can incorporate all of these, and I would say the more of these bullet points you can incorporate, probably the more successful you're going to be in your job search. So all of us have resources available to us. We all have some sort of networks available to us, and so a big part of this is just kind of tapping into that. So the first bullet point, utilizing your resources. So CCC Career Advising, that's the department that I'm in. You have instructors that you all know, and you have family and friends. So talk to them about maybe what jobs you're interested in. Ask them if there's employers here in Flagstaff that they have particularly enjoyed working for, and just let them know that you are interested in, a job, whether that's full-time or part-time, because if we can kind of spread the word and then have other people that can be the eyes and ears for us, that can be really helpful. A lot of people do get jobs because, maybe their mom was shopping at a place in downtown Flagstaff and saw a help wanted sign. And then the mom can go back to the student and say, hey, they're searching for somebody at, ABC restaurant. Why don't you go? And so a lot of opportunities can open up that way. Now, there is another avenue called like proactive networking, where somebody could join a professional network of some kind. I just looked on Facebook and saw that Flagstaff has a group called like Flagstaff Business Connections. It doesn't look like it's that big of a group, but it looks like it's for like small business owners and entrepreneurs. If somebody wanted to, and again, this is proactive, you have to take these steps, but you could add yourself to the group, you could introduce yourself to the members, and kind of say, what type of work you're looking for. And now this one's specific to jobs, in business or those types of connections, but you could find ones in other fields as well. There's also kind of local connections, such as like the Rotary Club, things like that, where there's a lot of professionals that join those types of organizations. And so it can be a kind of a more of a long-term approach to get a job, where you build those connections with influential people. And then as you get to know them and they get to know you, there can be opportunities that open up in the job market through that. Now, there are a ton of online resources, and this is, definitely the main way that people search for jobs in addition to the other ones that I've mentioned. So here at CCC, we have a program called Pipeline AZ that I'll highlight later on in the presentation if there's time. So you can create a profile and you can search for jobs, but then also employers can like search for you, which is really cool. There's also, the main website that people use to search for jobs is called Indeed.com. And also LinkedIn is like a professional networking, kind of like social media type of thing, but more career related. And there are a lot of jobs available through LinkedIn. There's also in-person job fairs that you can go to. I haven't looked at a local newspaper for a long time, but I'm assuming there's still like a job section if you wanted to do that. And then oftentimes organizations, they might have a bulletin board of some sort that have career options. So here at our 4th Street campus, in our what's it called, student lounge, there is a career board that you can check out. We try to keep it updated. Oops. Another thing that I just put in here as you're searching for a job. So searching for a job can almost be a job in and of itself. It takes a lot of time to put together a resume and cover letter, to search for positions, to apply for jobs, to follow up on those jobs. So stay motivated and stay positive. That can be a big part of being successful in this job search. So whatever it is that helps you to kind of stay in that positive mind frame. Or positive frame of mind. Okay. Some of this is repeating, or it's repeating the previous slide just a little bit. But when you are applying for jobs, remember those professional networks that you've tapped into. Remember to be professional in all of your communications. So like, let's say if you did join the Rotary Club here in Flagstaff as more of a long-term approach to make those connections, just remember that you want to be as professional as you can, because everybody kind of makes their judgments, right? And they make their assumptions. And so you want to come across professional. You want to come across as kind of organized and put together, kind of whatever that might mean. But at the same time, you want to be yourself too. You don't want to like come up with kind of this act where you're putting yourself into a different character. But you want to make sure you're kind of putting your best foot forward as you're communicating with people that could potentially be an employer in the future. We also want to make sure that we know something about the company that we might be applying to or interviewing with. Just a quick story. So a few years back, before I was here at CCC, I was a kind of a local manager for a company that worked with adults with disabilities, and I wanted some people to join my staff. And so there were actually 2 interviews that I had set up for this day. And the first interview, they showed up on time, they were dressed appropriately, the interview went really smooth, and I just kind of was left with a really good impression of the person. The second person showed up on time and looked professional. And the first question that I asked them was like, oh, so what makes you want to work for this company? Kind of what drew you to applying? And they kind of looked at me and they looked down and they looked back up and they said, you know what, if I can just be honest, I've been applying to a lot of jobs recently, and I'm not sure which company you represent. And so it was not the best way to start off the interview when they didn't even know what job or what company, that they were going to be applying to. So just make sure, again, you're putting your best foot forward. Now, when you're ready to apply, make sure you read a job description carefully. Make sure, and we'll talk more about putting a resume together, but you want to think about, what are the key things that they are looking for in an employer, in an employee. And if you can put some of those keywords into your resume, that's really going to look good for you. And also fill it out carefully. So that application can often be a lot of the information that's on your resume, they might ask you to input it again in the application. So you just want to make sure that everything matches. You want to make sure that your contact information is the same. That way they're not confused about like, oh, which email do they want me to send, or which email do they want me to follow up with, that sort of thing. All right, so when you're looking for jobs and you're looking at a job posting, so let's just say you went to Indeed and you typed in a job description that you're interested in, and there's some potential jobs that popped up. These are some questions you can kind of ask yourself to see if it's going to be a good fit for you. First off, are you qualified to do the job? Or is it something that is going to like stretch you in a reasonable way? So maybe it's something that you haven't done before, but you've wanted to learn some new skills or kind of, open up a new, just a new area that you're able to do. Thinking about what's motivating you to apply. So is it kind of the job duties that might excite you? Is it the pay that excites you? Would you be satisfied in this position? So just thinking about overall, the pay, the benefits, the hours that you're working, the type of work you'd be doing, the company culture, all those types of things. Will the position meet your needs? Does it require you to give anything up? Oftentimes when we say yes to something like a job, it means we're saying no to other things, right? Because we all have limits to our time and to our energy. So just thinking through, are you willing to say no to some of those other things can often be really helpful just to process that. Is future advancement a possibility as a result of this job? So some people, it's really like they might apply to job A as kind of a starting point, but they're really interested in kind of then getting led on to job B, or job C kind of beyond that. So in certain career fields, there are very specific ways that you can kind of move up the ladder, so to speak. And so, there might be a job that might be more of an entry-level position, and maybe it doesn't like fully excite you looking through some of these other bullet points, but the future possibility to move up into a position that does provide a better fit, maybe that's something that you're willing to compromise on. So you work in that entry-level position for a year, but then that it will open up other opportunities. All right, and then is this a job that you'd be happy doing and take pride in having? Sometimes I've asked people like, hey, is this a job that you would want to share with other people, that you work for a specific company, or that you have a certain job duty yeah, is it something that you'd be excited to share with your family or friends? All right, so what is a resume? Well, before I get into this, so evaluating a job posting, I'm sure you guys have all seen what a job posting looks like, but let me just kind of pull one up really quick. So hopefully this is all right with sharing my screen and everything, but I'm just going to go to indeed.com. Can you guys see my Indeed screen? Is it sharing properly?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So earlier this morning, I kind of looked up a job at North Country Healthcare. I think I spelled that wrong, but it still should come up. And let's see, where was the job I was looking for? So let's just look at this one. So this is within their dental department, and it's a patient relations representative. So as we are looking through this job posting, we can see the employer. We can see that it's full-time. They are looking for a few specific skills here. We can read then more about the job. We can read a description. We can read about the specific duties that a person would be doing. We can see what type of qualifications they're looking for. So in this case, it says knowledge of a related field, however acquired, such as basic accounting, data entry, or customer service, equivalent to 4 years in high school, plus night, trade, or correspondence school, plus 7 to 11 months related experience and or training, or equivalent combination of education and experience. So on your resume, you'd want to show that you have some of this training and qualifications that they're looking for. And basically that, this is kind of, yeah, they worded it kind of strange. I don't know, maybe it kind of sounds a little strange to me, but they're basically leaving the door really open. They're like, hey, however you have this experience, however you have this training, they're trying to count as much as they can, which is awesome for North Country. Yeah, and now it doesn't have anything on here about pay. It doesn't have anything on here about specific hours you might be working. So those are some of the things that you could ask, to a human resources rep if you had a chance to talk with somebody, or you could go ahead and apply and then ask those questions kind of during your interview. But I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of saw what a job posting here might look like. And then it looks like there's an opportunity to apply right here. Now, depending on how a company has this set up, you might be able to apply staying in the Indeed system, or it might take you to the company's website, and then you'd kind of be applying outside of Indeed. So it just depends on how the company has set it up. And probably how much they've been willing to pay Indeed to have either the pro style or just the basic. But here, really quick, let's just look at Coconino Community College. Are we hiring right now? Ooh, look at this. Student ambassador, a nursing student success coach, continuing education. You could work right here in this department if anybody wants to. CNA clinical instructor, all kinds of jobs that we are hiring for right now. Yeah, and Indeed is one of the platforms that we use. So this could definitely be a go-to resource for you as you are looking. Yes, we have a question here.
Could you show, just if you have time briefly, how to set parameters so that they get notifications
Yes.
if you have time?
Yeah, so Indeed, one of the really useful resources is that you can create a profile and you can kind of narrow down what type of jobs then you would like to get notified for. So let me see if I'll be able to do this, logging into my account. Let's see, is this you by chance?
That is.
So let's sign you out. I don't want to let's see if I can do this without too much hassle. So let's do Google. Let's use another account. I think that's my password. Oh man, what's my? Can't remember my personal password.
Should later too, tomorrow.
This is the issue when Google remembers all my passwords for me and I don't have to do it. Thought that was it. Oh, anyways.
I can show tomorrow.
Thank you. But yeah, you would need to sign in and create a profile on Indeed. And then I forget the exact clicks that you'd have to do. But there is a way to get notifications for certain jobs, and you can narrow it down to jobs specifically in Flagstaff. You can narrow it down to jobs within like a 50-mile radius. You can narrow it down so there's certain qualifications that you're looking for. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And then you can set it up, yeah, for like, I think even like a daily email if you wanted to get notified that frequently, or weekly, monthly, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but while you're talking about like narrowing down the job search, yeah, I will see that there's all these different buttons here that Indeed provides. So you can search for, like, let's say I want to do medical billing in Flagstaff, or actually let's take out Flagstaff. Let's just look for Arizona. And let's do within the last 24 hours. So I want jobs that have just been posted. And now I can search for full-time. It looks like it took out my medical billing. And Arizona. Search. Okay, now I don't know if it actually kept my other criteria, or maybe it kind of referred back to just the general ones. But here are jobs that came up with this medical billing description in Arizona. And yeah, you can see here just from the top, there's 321 jobs that I could scroll through. Yeah, so a lot of opportunities out there. One of the big categories that people care about these days is somewhere here, it might say, yeah, remote. And so I could narrow this down to remote medical billing jobs. And now hopefully when companies have uploaded a job description, they've put these indicators in correctly. Yeah, sometimes you'll get a company that is kind of being like, they try to want to get as many people as possible to see the post. So they might put in like remote and in person, but then you realize like, oh, they really do want people in person. So yeah, you have to realize, kind of read through the description and sometimes filter through what they're really looking for. Okay. Any questions from the group out there when it comes to like using Indeed or online resources to find jobs?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you. And while I have this up right here, I'm going to take you guys to CCC's Career Services page. So if I hover over students, Career Services is here on the right-hand side. So just within the last year, CCC was able to kind of bring on a program called Pipeline AZ. And we are promoting, or we're encouraging all of our students to create a profile and kind of sign up with this. And this is where you can kind of fill out your profile, and yeah, you can search. It's another way to search for jobs in the Flagstaff area, but then also companies can search for you, which is really neat. So if you just click here on the students getting started, there's a few steps that you can go through. The first one is just registering. So let me open up. Yep, it opens up a new tab here, which is great. Okay, let me see if I can remember this login. I'm pretty useless, I realize, when it comes to actually remembering my passwords. Gmail.com. Come on, cross your fingers. Yes, I remembered this one. All right, so if you don't have a profile, then you just click on whatever it said, create a new profile or something like that. But the cool thing about this is you can take a career assessment. And I've already taken it, so it asked me to retake it. But for you, it would just say take it for the first time or something like that. And there's 60 questions that are all pretty simple and straightforward. So it takes about 5 or 10 minutes, but they will match careers then based on that question profile that they kind of get. So if I view my results from my profile, these were the top industries that were actually suggested for me. Now, I encourage students to kind of, you can take this all with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not necessarily interested in like applied technology, but for some reason, this showed up as like my top career field, which is interesting. So it appears that based on kind of what I selected about what I like and what I enjoy doing, I would actually be pretty content to be an electrician, a plumber, a pipe fitter, steam fitter, or a roofer. So I find this really interesting. So you can kind of play around with this. This is all going to be in this applied technology kind of area. But these other two fields that came up actually really do match with me. So yeah, I've worked before in the behavioral health field and the health sciences. Like I actually got my undergrad degree to be a high school science teacher. And I took a lot of biology and kind of medical kind of classes. So yeah, these things do really fit with me. Excuse me. I usually don't talk this much during the day, so my throat's getting dry. So I would encourage each of you, if any of you are taking notes or anything, come back to this Pipeline AZ and create a profile, do the career assessment, and then browse through kind of your top industries. And some of you, if there's some people out there that just have no idea what they might want to do for a career, then this can be a great start. And yeah, you can also just like browse all industries. Yeah, so one neat thing is you can really use this as like a career exploration type of tool. So let's say there's something within computers that, maybe I know something about computers and I already have some skills in that area, or maybe it's just something that really interests me. So I can click on this and view careers. So let's say this top one, being a business intelligence analyst, is something that really strikes me like, oh man, that sounds really cool. And look at this average salary, 96K a year. Then you can click on it and it'll give some more information. So it kind of breaks down this average pay and just gives you a little bit more information about what you might experience for an entry-level job versus when you've been doing it for maybe 30 years. If I keep going down, it lets me know how many jobs are available in Arizona, kind of within this career field. So right now, looks like there's 130 jobs that kind of match this description. And then by 2030, there's going to be this many openings. 960 is kind of what they're projecting. So if there might be like 3 different positions that you're thinking about getting into, you can look at how many jobs are kind of opening within those fields. And, if this one, let's say is about 900 for, through 2030, and let's say there's another job you're considering that has 5,000 openings, you might consider going for the one that is going to have more openings. Here's some tasks yeah, that you can expect to do. Here's some of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are really key for this type of profession. And if you keep going down, here's actually some job opportunities that match this business intelligence analyst description. And it looks like all these jobs that I'm seeing here are down in the valley, but we are working on kind of filling out our Flagstaff opportunities. And again, if you click on one of these, it will have a job description here. The thing about Pipeline AZ is you can't actually apply for a job through this program. This apply button will always take you then directly to their website or like some outside source that then you would apply through. Versus Indeed, sometimes you can apply right through the Indeed website. And just one more thing I'll point out. Yeah, if you just go back to your dashboard. Yeah, so these are jobs that they have matched kind of specifically to me. Again, I don't know why in my profile I'm attached to like a transportation director, but it kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. But yeah, you can see that these jobs that are matched for you. You can change the search radius. You can change, yeah, how things are kind of displayed. And you can just have some fun with this. If I go under career exploration, just to jobs, yeah, this is where, again, just like on Indeed, what did I type in before? Medical billing. And I think I have to put a zip code in. So let's just do here in Flagstaff. Will anything come up? Nothing. So let's see how I could filter this. Let's do within 100 miles. Nothing coming up. Maybe this is too specific. Let's just put in medical. No results. Okay, so there was nothing under billing or medical billing that came up, but there were some jobs that came up under construction right here in Flagstaff. So depending on kind of what careers you're hoping to get into, yeah, this might be a really helpful resource that kind of displays some new opportunities. Or, you know, the worst that can happen is you'll get that little thing that says like, no jobs available.
Can you try solar?
Yeah, let's type in solar. So since I still have a pretty broad search radius, so it brought up some jobs in Scottsdale. Yep, so these would be some opportunities that somebody could look into. Clearway Energy. I know I'm getting away from my PowerPoint a little bit, but hopefully this is okay. Sometimes tangents are just really helpful. But you know, when I said, you know, it's important to know a little bit about the company, like it's important to know what their mission is, what their values are, maybe where's their headquarters. So I don't know anything about Clearway Energy, but if this job description sounded appealing to me, then I would Google this. So let's just kind of do this together. I'm going to copy Clearway Energy. I'm going to open up a new tab. And let's do Clearway Energy, Arizona. So there might be some others. And let's see what pops up. All right, so let's try this first link. Big fancy building. Hopefully they have solar somewhere on it. Okay, so this would be their website where you could learn more about the company. And so remember when I said like sometimes applying for jobs can feel like a part-time job? Like you would want to dive into this website. You'd want to click on, you know, what they do, their vision and values, maybe see who their leadership team is. Yeah, you could see what type of projects they're involved in. You know, more and more people, it's not just about a job or a specific company, but they really want like a vision for the company that really inspires them. So you can get a sense for that, you know, from their website. here's a link that says join our team, so you might see what other positions they have available. And if I had clicked on this apply right here, I bet it would have taken me right to this same link from their website. All right. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Okay, so let's say you've searched for jobs. You've used all of your resources available to you. You've been sharing with your family and friends that you're looking for a job. And let's say you're looking through a job description and something really looks appealing to you. So what you would need to do is make sure you have a resume ready to go. And I would encourage you to have a cover letter ready to go as well. Now, more and more, I see that a resume is kind of required and a cover letter might be an optional type of thing. Very, very few times do I see a cover letter required. But these two things are somewhat, they're related, but yet they serve different purposes. So a resume here, you can see, let me make this a little bigger. Let me swap it. Okay, so what is a resume on the left-hand side? So it's an itemized list of your education and employment history. It summarizes what you've done for work, what type of education you've had, and the experience that you've had that's kind of relevant to the job that you're interested in. It just kind of lists the facts. So you don't really put full sentences in. You don't need to, when it says don't worry about proper grammar, yeah, because you can just have bullet points. And so you're not really thinking about making complete sentences or paragraphs per se. You still want everything to have proper grammar, but the cover letter is actually where it's more written in a paragraph style. And it also highlights your qualifications and your experience. But when you're writing in kind of a paragraph style, you can add in more persuasion into this document. So this is where some of your maybe excitement for the job could come through. You could share specifically about why this job is appealing to you, or why their specific company, is one that you're interested in. And sometimes if an employer is posting a job, they might get 100 applications, right? And let's say if only 5 people attach a cover letter and they explain more about why they're interested in that company and that job, that can be a huge step forward for them. Chances are that your application is going to be immediately elevated to the top of the pile if you have a persuasive cover letter. So I'll give some examples later on. But yeah, you basically kind of highlight what's in your resume, but you do it in a more of a paragraph form. Yeah, and you can add in that persuasion. And whereas a resume kind of has more bullet points and is short and sweet and concise, a cover letter is in that paragraph form where you can expound a little bit more. All right, so why do I need a resume and cover letter? So a resume details your relevant skills and experience, as we've discussed. Let's see, I'll just highlight a few of these. Yeah, so here on the right-hand side, the average employer spends between 30 and 45 seconds kind of looking at a resume. So your resume gives a really quick snapshot of kind of who you are as a person. So we want to make sure that everything is easy to find, that it's spelled correctly, that there's no distractions on a resume, because employers, whether it's a physical resume they're looking at or an electrical one, like an electronic copy, generally they're doing a pretty quick sweep the first time through. So we want to make sure that everything is done well. Yeah, and a well-written cover letter can convince them to go back and look at your resume then a little bit more closely. When a resume and cover letter complement each other, it creates a sense that you are professional, organized, that you've really done your research, and yeah, that you're prepared to kind of come in and get an interview, or yeah, to have an interview. Now, one thing that I'll kind of highlight is that your resume and cover letter, they're really important, but they don't necessarily get you a job. And so this is something that yeah, is just kind of interesting. So a resume and a cover letter, they get you that opportunity to interview, right? And so we need to make sure that those documents are well put together. And then you get the opportunity to come, usually in person, but there's more and more online interviews these days, where then you get to actually meet the people that might be your supervisor or coworkers. You get to introduce yourself. You get to share about why you're interested in the job. Yeah, and we'll talk more about interviews later on. But your resume and cover letter don't get you a job, they get you that interview. Okay, so here's a few tips on actually writing a resume. And you guys have come off mute just a few times. So come off mute again and just tell me, is a resume something that you already have created? Do you have one of these somewhere kind of, in a folder on your computer? Or is this something that you might be creating for the first time?
Halfway
I have
done.
one.
Yeah, Jeanette, go ahead.
Halfway done.
Halfway done? Nice, Jeanette. Well, I hope that this is helpful then for you as we talk about some of the tips and tricks. And Victoria, what did you say?
I have one and it's not very big.
Uh-huh, got it. Very nice. And, one thing that we might find, yeah, is that some people might have like their kind of general resume. But then when they're applying to a specific job, then they'll make it more specific for a certain job. And so you might end up, as you create your first resume, and then as maybe you apply for jobs in the future, if that's your goal, that you end up having a number of different resumes that you can kind of use in different situations. Okay, so in general, we want to keep a resume to 1 page. A lot of that has to do with kind of the quick sweep that a lot of managers or supervisors are going to be using when they look at your resume. So we want to try to keep it as concise as possible. There are some situations where we might go beyond 1 page, but I think as a general rule, 1 page is what we want to stick to. We want to keep the format simple so that things are easy to find. We want to make sure that all the info is accurate and updated. And we just want to make sure to have somebody else check it. Now, this seems really straightforward, right? That we should have a resume that's accurate, but sometimes we can get lost in looking at all the little details of a resume that we might forget that we've updated our phone number from the last time we created our resume. And I've had people that that have submitted resumes to me, and I've tried to call them on the number that they've provided, and that number says out of service. And so then what do? If I have a bunch of other people applying, I probably just put that resume to the side and go on to the next person. It can be a bit of a hassle, right? Or an obstacle then to try to maybe contact that person through the email address that they provided. And who knows if that is accurate and updated either. So just make sure that all those little things are good to go. And having somebody else look over it and just have that fresh pair of eyes can be really helpful. You want to make sure to be honest about your experience as well. I've helped some people that really want to try to make things seem a bit better than they are, either in terms of how many years they've been with a company or the types of things that they did while they were at a job. And you just want to make sure that you're honest and you're straightforward. You don't want to give people the impression of something that might not be true. All right, so this might be just a little bit fuzzy. It is here on my screen, but here is a resume that we can kind of look at and just kind of use this as a bit of an example. So a few things that I'll point out. So the person's name and contact info is right at the top, so it's easy to find. I personally like it when the person's name is a bit bigger as well than the regular font. I feel like it just kind of displays confidence, but you can decide kind of what look you're going for. Some people, they'll say just to keep everything, all the text black, but in this example, they have a little bit of red just kind of dotted throughout the page, right? And I think a little bit of color can actually be quite appropriate and just kind of make things pop a little bit more. So they put their last name in red and then just kind of some of these dividing lines. Now, this person decided to put a professional summary up at the top. So this is something that, yeah, more and more resumes are kind of including this. And it's almost adding a little bit of that cover letter feel into the resume, where you can put 2 or 3 sentences in here that kind of describe I guess that just kind of sum you up, who you are and what type of job you're looking for. We want to make sure that there's something that says work history or employment history, and usually these jobs are listed in chronological order. If you're currently working at a company, like here, Daniel is still working at, what is that, Loose Contracting in New Hampshire. And so, you know, he put the date he started and then just put to current. He also has the previous construction jobs he's done. He lists his skills down here at the bottom. And you can see these aren't full sentences, right? They're just kind of quick bullet points. And then he put his education down here at the bottom. Now, depending on the position that you're applying for, you might switch around some of these categories. So in the job description, maybe they are really big on having experience and having previous work experience, yeah, versus being really big on education. So then you might have your work history up towards the top. You might find jobs that are just the opposite. Maybe experience is like preferred, but it's not actually needed, but maybe they want a certain degree or certificate under your belt. So then you might move this education area kind of up towards the top and have the work history maybe further down. So you can kind of adapt this depending on the specific job and kind of what they're looking for. Okay, so let's just kind of go through this again. Make sure your contact information is correct and stands out at the top. You want to be brief, but also detailed in your skills and qualifications. This one says only include work experience that's relevant. Now, if you don't have relevant work experience, then you wouldn't just want to leave that section blank. Yeah, you would just put whatever work experience you do have. And hopefully in some of the bullet points underneath, you can link to show the jobs that you've had, how they do kind of equip you for the job that you're hoping to get. List skills and credentials from most important to least important. Work history from most recent to oldest. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're avoiding kind of jargon or language that just seems like, I don't know, just really superficial, or that just seems like, I don't know, something that a teenager would say. You want to make sure it sounds really professional. And start each bullet with an action verb. We'll talk more about that later on.
I have a question.
Yes.
For some of our older students,
Uh-huh.
how far back do you think they should go with their work history?
Uh,
Or just pick the things that are relevant to the job
uh-huh.
and leave out, you know, because some people have a long work history.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so hopefully you guys were able to hear that question. It had to do with like, yeah, how much work history should you put on a resume if you have been working for a while? And so, yeah, I would say it's most important to put the jobs that are, yeah, relevant to the position. But as a general rule, maybe thinking about the jobs within the last 10 years is kind of a good place to start. You know, let's just say, for example, if somebody was going for a customer service position and they have a lot of customer service experience, yeah, you'd want to list the things that are that have happened most recently, yeah, within the last 10 years. And if you worked at McDonald's when you were 16, but now you're 46, you could leave that off if you chose to. Now there might be some situations where just maybe somebody had a long break in their work, right? So maybe they worked a lot 10 plus years ago, but more recently they don't have a lot of experience. Yeah, so then it'd be more than fine to kind of go back and list those jobs. And sometimes people might even put a bit of a placeholder on their resume. I've had some people be really creative where they'll say like, stay-at-home mom technician or something like that. Well, they'll put in a job, you know, that kind of like helps explain maybe why they're out of the workforce for the last 6 years, that sort of thing. And yeah, some students get really creative.
Like taking care of elderly parents.
Yes, yeah, and things like that happen. things like that happen where, yeah, we don't all have 25 years of consecutive work history. Yeah, sometimes there are some interruptions. And so in those specific instances, yeah, having maybe a job coach or somebody like me to like, we could come up with things to kind of put in a resume like that. Using Google as a resource, you might be able to see what other people have put in their resume. But yeah, having some sort of a placeholder can be helpful. All right. So I mentioned earlier, you don't want to send out the exact same resume to every single job you apply for. Or maybe I should say that like it's in your advantage to kind of customize your resume for each job. And you definitely want to customize the cover letter. Again, kind of going back to my own experience, I've had cover letters sent to me that have a different company title at the top. And so the person obviously just, maybe they were really trying to do things quickly, or maybe they didn't care too much. And they were like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and submit this other cover letter, and hopefully that'll be sufficient. So for any certificates or degrees that might be like in progress, or if you're pursuing your high school equivalency, feel free to put that that's in progress. Some students want to put their GPA, and I would say this is something that you either can do or feel free to leave it off. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but if your GPA is under 3.0, you probably want to leave it off. Yeah, having a 2.5 is still a good GPA that you should be proud of, but maybe just on a resume, you would just go ahead and just leave it off. Whoops. Volunteer work and internships are also a great thing to add. A lot of students that I work with, they tend to be younger. Maybe they're straight out of high school, and so they don't have that much work experience. But if they've done babysitting before, or they've done volunteering, even like doing some house sitting type of things, put whatever you can on your resume to help show that you're a responsible, professional person. And ask your instructors to be a reference for you if you need that. And we'll talk more about references later on. All right, so I showed an example of like a good resume. Here's an example of one that maybe could use some improving. So, I blocked off a number of things that, are specific to the student. But yeah, this is something that was put together that just looks a little scattered. It doesn't have a clear kind of flow to it. Yeah, some of these exclamation points that they've put in up here, great track record. Like, what does that even mean? Skills down here, putting an exclamation point. I don't know if this person was specifically going for airline software, computer literate skills, but that's like the test that they chose to put on their resume. So you want to be really thoughtful with kind of what you're adding on, how it's displayed, and just kind of the feel that it gives to the person that is going to be reading this. All right, so if we were all in person, we could take a bit of a 5-minute break, or maybe that'd still be good since we're on Zoom. But first, before we kind of do a 5-minute little break, are there any questions, Jeanette or Victoria? Anything that I might be able to help describe a little bit more?
No.
No,
Everything seems straightforward?
yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you guys normally have little breaks here and there, but yeah, we've been talking for an hour together. So let's just take a quick 5. Feel free to use the restroom or grab some water, and yeah, let's meet back at let's do 11:06. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. I will just mute myself here. All right, let me know if we're ready to start again. Jeanette and Victoria, you guys ready? Give you guys just another minute here.
Maybe.
Yep, I took myself off mute. Let's see, Jeanette, Victoria, you guys ready if we continue on? I don't think my speakers got turned down or anything.
She has.
Mhm.
Just.
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of continue on. I guess we are recording it, so okay. So let's go ahead. And we'll keep talking about some of these different topics. Whoops. Zoom slideshow. Oh, I'm trying just to mess with my settings here. I'm sharing the wrong one. Okay, that's all right. We'll just stick with this. So cover letter 101. So this is a targeted letter, as we talked about, to let the employer, or targeted letter to an employer for each position that you are applying, showing that you have some knowledge about the company and the position that you're applying for. Let's see, so you have a brief introduction to kind of catch their attention. Then there's 2 to 3 paragraphs after that. You want to keep this all to 1 page, just like your resume. Now, when it says use the same header as your resume, you just kind of want the styles to kind of match each other. That way, when they're looking at your resume, it doesn't kind of give off one impression, and then they look at your cover letter and it's just kind of totally different. So you kind of just want those styles to kind of be in sync together. Now your cover letter, as I mentioned, they might not be required for like some positions, like I put in here, maybe some positions in construction or like maintenance, or other maybe entry-level positions, they might not require it, but it can help you stand out. So like I said, if there's 100 people applying and 5 attach a cover letter, immediately those 5 are going to stand out and have an advantage.
You want to do slideshow?
So, yeah, I'm doing the slideshow. It's showing up on here. Let me try this. Let me exit the slideshow. I'm not sure how to like swap my pages. Let me stop sharing just for a second. It gave me the option to like swap, and for some reason I said no. Now it's just, hopefully this will be okay. All right, so here's some tips on formatting the cover letter, but let's just kind of go to an example. All right, so you would want your name, contact info, all of that back here in the top. Oh, let me make sure I'm sharing again. Share screen. Screen 1. Okay. So here's an example of a cover letter. You'd want to make sure you're using, yeah, like I said, the same kind of format, the same font of print, all that kind of stuff as your resume. Make sure your name and contact info is up at the top. You know, who you're writing it to is often included here in a cover letter. And now you can kind of do a quick introduction. You can highlight the specific position that you're applying for. You can write about how your experience and your qualifications fits with that position. And then you can just basically say like why you want the job. And this is where that persuasion, some of that excitement, some of just your energy for this opportunity can kind of come through. And it really does come through in a cover letter, much more than in a resume. So I've said this a few times now, but this can be a great investment of time to put this together because it really will separate you from the rest of the pack. Just a few tips when it comes to a cover letter. So keep it clear and simple. You don't want to use long sentences or wording that you would never say in conversation. The font of your cover letter and resume should match. Here's a few fonts that are suggested that are just really simple and kind of easy to read. So I would suggest sticking to those. Using at least 12-point font to ensure that it's readable. You don't want somebody to have to maximize the screen too many times to be able to read. Just like your resume, how we said it's important to proofread it and have some other eyes on it. You want to do that same thing for a cover letter. And you know, back when we were talking about resumes, we mentioned how you can kind of maybe fill in some gaps in employment history. You can also use your cover letter to maybe explain a little bit more about why you've been unemployed for the last 3 years, or why there was a 5-year gap at some point in your life, that sort of thing. You can also, at the very end, just be polite, thank them for their time, for their attention, and kind of provide that next step. So at the bottom of your cover letter, you might say something like, I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope I have an opportunity to meet you in person for an interview. Something like that, that gives a really clear follow-up of what you're hoping to see. All right, any questions about cover letters from anyone?
No.
No? All right. All right, so let's go on to an interview. And let me just try one more time to kind of like flop my screen around here. It's just not wanting to cooperate. I want you guys to see the presentation one.
Did you try going up to slideshow?
Slideshow.
Current slide?
So it's like somehow I need to like swap my screens, but I'm not sure how to get back to that. Yeah, this might just have to be what we stick with.
Does that arrow work on near the?
Yeah, do you know? I don't know.
No, that's not what yeah.
I could close it and reopen it, but I think this will be fine. All right, so let's talk really quick about the interview. All right, and I put a catchy title on this, Ace the Interview. So all this work that we've done so far. So remember, we've been searching for jobs. We found one that we like. We put together a resume and a cover letter that looks really professional. We have now applied to the job and we've attached that resume and cover letter, as well as filling out their whole application, which can sometimes be just a repeat of everything that's on our resume. But now we sent that off, we pushed submit, and we've heard back. And the company would like to set up an interview with us. All right, so how do we prepare? And again, this is an important thing to kind of talk about. It's an important thing to kind of practice as well. It might feel a little awkward, but you might actually sit down, the day before your interview and think about some potential interview questions and just kind of practice saying them out loud. If some of you have a family member, you might even do like a mock interview where maybe your son or daughter or your mom or dad actually pretends to be the hiring manager. And you could sit down at a table across from them and actually practice saying your answers out loud. So just a few keys here. You want to try to convey a sense of positive energy. So the word I put here is just, you want to be enthusiastic, but you want to smile, you want to be friendly, you want to come across as like approachable and just open. However it is that you do that, yeah, everybody can kind of have their own style. You want to introduce yourself with a confident handshake. Now, there are people that give like whole seminars just on how to give a good handshake. So you can, Google some tips. But yeah, you just don't want to squeeze too hard. You don't want to have a limp handshake. Now in the days of COVID and everything, or post-COVID, whatever stage we're in, you might just, if it's an in-person interview, of course, you might allow the hiring manager to kind of take the lead with the handshake and just kind of see if it's something that they would like to do or not. Yeah, there's some different strategies there. You want to make sure during your interview that you're sitting up straight, that you're not slouching or leaning, or that you're just not looking like too uptight. You just want to have a natural but kind of focused position as you're there. Now, it can often be convenient or comfortable to be in one of these chairs that swivels. Mine swivels right now, but during an interview, they can be quite the nuisance because all of us have a tendency when we're kind of feeling maybe a little nervous or on the spot, we tend to like maybe just kind of go like this a little bit. And so this is why it can be helpful to practice, because you want to just try to be still if you can. All of us have those little tendencies when we get nervous, and it's okay if you twist a little bit in your chair, but if you can be aware of it and just try to pause your movements, that can be helpful. Maintain eye contact when speaking, but also, you don't want to just have like this locked on stare either. So just kind of a natural eye contact, but at times breaking from that contact and coming back. Yeah, you'll find a rhythm that works for you. You want to make sure that you're speaking clearly and concisely. You want to make sure also on this point, just not to kind of go off on tangents. You want to stick to the question that was asked and make sure that you're being focused on that. This last bullet point. So this is kind of like this fine line where you don't want to brag, but you also don't want to be like bashful about who you are or your experience. So you do want to really highlight who you are, what skills you have, like show that you're confident that you can do this position and that you're a good candidate for it, or maybe even the best candidate. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're not kind of shying away from really highlighting who you are. This can be kind of a weird thing because usually we don't like to kind of talk ourselves up, right? Usually that's not what we do when we maybe meet somebody new, but in an interview, they need to know, yeah, that you believe in yourself and that you are equipped for this position, and they need to hear that from you. All right, so there might be some tricky questions that come up during your interview. I just put a few of these here. So why did you leave your last place of employment? I would recommend that you always try to keep that answer positive, even if your last employer was not a great experience. Yeah, you don't want to come across as like talking down to them or being negative. You want it to come across in a positive way. And so thinking about how you might answer that in advance can be helpful. They might ask you, what's your greatest weakness? They might say something, or yeah, there might be some other tricky questions that they just kind of ask you. And some of them might not even be job related, but just like totally random. Like if you could have any superpower, what would you have? And so just remember that if there's something that kind of throws you off guard, it's okay to take a second and take a deep breath, collect your thoughts, and then try to give a concise, brief answer kind of as quickly as you can. Now, when it comes to this greatest weakness question, this is one that comes up fairly often in interviews. And so I would recommend finding something or trying to think about maybe your work habits or your work style. Find something that is kind of a challenge for you, that maybe doesn't come too easily. And you can highlight that for the question, but then also talk about what you've done to maybe turn that into something that's not a challenge or not a weakness anymore. And so that's kind of a way to kind of answer the question, but then also show that you're aware of it and that you've either put some accommodations in place or you've found something to really help you so that it's not something that kind of gets in your way. All right. It is okay too, it says here, like, take notes on multiple part questions. It's okay to have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you and even be jotting down some notes. So if somebody asks a 3-part question, which hopefully they don't, you could take some quick notes so that you make sure to answer all those questions. It is okay just to ask them to repeat the question as well. Now, I've been in interviews before where somebody kind of gets caught in this cycle of kind of like repeating maybe the same things over and over. So yeah, feel free just to try to be aware of what you're saying, and you can just kind of, you know, cut the question off or cut your answer off. Yeah, and just kind of move on to that next question. It is appropriate too to like at the end of an interview, if there was something that you wanted to say, but maybe you forgot in the moment, you can go back and be like, you know what, when you asked me why I wanted to apply to this job, I forgot to mention, you know, and then you could go on and kind of, yeah, share that added information, whatever it is that you wanted to add. All right, these are just kind of 4 C's that we put together. Some people like these little, I don't know, whatever it is. It's not really an acronym, but you want to come across as capable. So convince them that you can do the job. Convince them that you're committed, so that you want this job, not just like any job. Now, it's very common that people are applying to multiple positions, you know, and so there might be kind of some different irons that you have in the fire, different things that you're pursuing. But in the case of how you want to come across in the interview, yeah, you do want to show that it's their job that you're interested in. Chemistry. So show them that you'll fit in with others who you'll be working with. If you're able to find out some of those mission and values from the company, you know, that all fits in this chemistry area where you feel like, yeah, you're going to be a good fit for what the company is trying to achieve. Yeah, and then culture, which also plays into that chemistry. So show them you understand the values and culture of the business and that you share the values of this specific employer. All right, so once you've had an interview and interacted with the company, there are a few things that you can do. So the first bullet point here, it kind of says, like, you know, reevaluate how this position fits with your life, your goals. You know, the second bullet point, will you be able to meet the demands of the job? Maybe you learned some extra information. So that job we were looking at towards the beginning, that was at North Country, it didn't have any hours posted, right? It didn't have the pay posted. So you might have learned some more information about the job, and now you kind of need to think back on this and think, now that I have this extra info, is this job still a good fit for me? Does the company have a bad reputation, a high turnover? We need to ensure that this position is going to meet our needs, or at least set you on a path to achieve a longer term goal. Will you accomplish something that you can take pride in? One thing that I like to highlight too is during the interview, you know, obviously you're getting interviewed, right? But in a way, you really are interviewing them as well. And there's always a time at the end of an interview where they'll ask you, do you have any further questions for me? And I would always recommend that you have 2 or 3 questions in your back pocket. So you can either, one, like learn more about this specific position, or you can learn more about the company. Now, not only will that help you to determine if this is a job you want to accept or not, but it also shows that you're like prepared for the interview. It shows that you really are interested in like learning more about the company or the position, and it just helps the the people on the other side of the desk to maybe be that more impressed by you if you have some good thought out questions for them. All right, so we are getting towards the end of our time here together. I have a few more slides that I could go through, but at this point, I want to ask if there's any questions related to this interview. So Jeanette or Victoria, I'd be curious, are there any questions you guys have, or are there any experiences you would actually like to share, maybe from interviews that you've had?
No, I've only done 2 interviews in my life.
Got it. So Victoria, if you can think back to those situations, was it just one person interviewing you, or was it a group of people doing the interview?
The first time was one person, and then my second job was a manager, HR, and another supervisor.
Yeah, got it. Got it. And thinking back to that, Victoria, I'm just kind of curious, do you remember doing any preparation for those interviews?
I didn't.
Uh-huh.
I basically just answered with honesty, and
Yeah.
I landed the job.
Oh, well, way to go. That's awesome. Yep.
And I've been
being
here
on it.
6 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, nice job. You know, and people really do know themselves, right? Or like, and so, you know, you might be comfortable going into an interview without any preparation. Other people, they like to kind of, you know, cross every T that they can and dot every I and do as much prep as they can. So all the stuff that I shared, you know, you can kind of just see how it fits with you. So if you had an interview in the future, Victoria, yeah, maybe you do some preparation, or maybe not. Yeah, and it just depends on kind of what makes you feel comfortable. All right, Jeanette, we have just a few more seconds here. Do you have any questions or comments?
How do I start this, the process? Is it already put together, or do you have to go through?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I am going to put my email into the chat. And once you have a resume or a cover letter put together, I would encourage you to have, you know, somebody other than yourself kind of look it over and kind of give some guidance and suggestions. So I would be happy to do that. I'm going to put my email here into the chat.
Okay.
So it's david.prieb@coconino.edu. So I'll spell that out for those that are maybe doing the recording later on. So it's david.prieb@coconino.edu. And once you have a resume and cover letter put together, you could email it to me and I'd be happy to review it and look over it. And then we could either meet through phone and kind of talk over some of the suggestions, or we could do a Zoom meeting, kind of whatever works best. Zoom is really nice because then we'd be able to pull up the document and actually be looking at the same thing together. But yeah, I'd be happy to help people with any next steps. Once they have an interview lined up, I've actually done some mock interviews with students as well, where I will pretend to be that hiring manager and we'll go through some common interview questions. So I'd be happy to help with that too.
Okay. I
Okay.
did get one interview.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I
you
was
did.
volunteering at the place already, so I kind of knew what they were expecting.
Uh-huh.
So I had a group of people interview, so at the interview. So
That's
just being
great.
honest, and they asked a lot of questions like about the kitchen part, so I kind of knew what they want. I
Perfect.
guess I got the job.
Yeah, that's a great way to get a job, Jeanette. Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's been a pleasure presenting this morning. I hope everybody has a good day. And yes, just feel free to reach out if you have any other future questions.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank
are
you.
Thank
welcome.
you.
Appreciate that. That was awesome. I learned a lot myself.
Let me close some of my tabs here. I will eject my USB.
He's right across the hall if you're ever in Flagstaff.
Grab it.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
much.
David.
You are welcome. Take care.
You too.
Take care.
Okay, see you around. All right, so we'll stop for today. We can talk about this more, other times in the, tomorrow, the next day, by the end of the week before we go on break. So I'm also happy to look at a resume or cover letter if you want to do that in the next couple of days. I don't know, Mary, what you had in mind for the next 2 days, but you could probably fit that in, or you could come in the afternoon. And then you could send it to David to get the professional touch. That was great. I learned a lot about interviewing from him. That was really interesting. All right, guys, any other issues?
Sign in sheet.
Sign in sheet, let me get that for you. Yeah, I didn't know that the resume and the cover letter should look the same. I think that's great. The other
Yeah, I
tip that
didn't
I
know
wanted to mention, you guys, is it's better to send your upload your resume, like if you're on a website for the company, in a PDF. That way they can't like kind of mess with it or copy, it's just more stable. And that's better for you, not to have something that can be like messed up by one of their employees, and then the next person sees a kind of messed up version. So it's good to save as a PDF. Little tip that I've
Okay.
found helpful.
Good to know.
All right, well, I'm here for a few minutes if anybody wants anything. And then if not, I'll see you tomorrow. I hope.
Okay.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye, Mary.
Bye.